I woke up to the sound of metal, not birds. Not the soft clank of a gate, but the hard, rhythmic crash of steel posts being hammered into the ground. A diesel auger coughing exhaust so thick it pushed the smell of my coffee right off the porch. By the time I pulled on my boots and walked out to the backfield, an 8-foot chain link wall was already crawling across my land, a straight silver scar cutting through my dead dad's pecan trees and right over the cattle road I'd used my whole life. I paced it out later, but my gut knew before the tape measure did. 40+ feet inside my fence line, easy. And there she was, parked like royalty at a coronation. Monica Hale, president of the Pine Ridge Estates HOA, sitting in her little white golf cart with a logo on the side, oversized sunglasses, iced latte in hand, watching her crew steal my land like it was a show she'd paid for. When she saw me, she actually waved. I'm Logan Barrett, county surveyor for 26 years, third-generation rancher, and the guy who signed off on the subdivision that sits on the other side of that fence. Every boundary line in Redwood County has passed under my pen, including the one she just pretended didn't exist. The foreman, a kid who looked too nervous to shave, showed me a map stamped by Northline Geoservices. Their drawing said the fence belonged to her. My family's pecan grove, her common area. Stop, I told him. That plat doesn't match county records. You set one more post, you're trespassing. That's when Monica slid out of her cart, perfume arriving a second before she did. Oh, Logan, she said, voice sweet like she was correcting a confused child. Surely you understand property boundaries. Your father's old fence was never in the right place. We finally had it done properly. Her new markers were the wrong color, wrong style, wrong everything. But the crew kept drilling, contract signed, money spent, momentum rolling. By late afternoon, the fence was done. By sunset, I found the padlock across my cattle road, 14 pregnant heifers trapped on the wrong side like they now belonged to her subdivision. Her text came at 5:47 p.m. on the dot. Please remove your livestock from Pine Ridge Common Area within 72 hours or impound fees will apply. I sat in my truck as the light bled out of the sky, staring at that fence slicing through Henry Barrett's old pecan grove, my father's voice in the back of my head. When someone cheats you, don't yell. Document. Then bury them in facts. So that's what I did. I took photos. I pulled the original plat I'd approved 18 months earlier for Cedar Crest Meadows, the luxury development next door. Their legal boundary stopped 50 feet from my fence. On paper, that line was clear as daylight. On the ground, she'd just taken 40+ feet and welded it shut. First call was to Kelly, my assistant at the county office. We spread the subdivision plat across my desk, laid my fresh photos beside it, and the encroachment screamed off the page. This wasn't inches. It was a full lane of stolen land. I asked the county attorney, Martin Cole, for an emergency cease and desist against the Pine Ridge Estates HOA. Are you certain, Logan? He asked. I'm the one who certified the original survey, I said. Yeah, I'm certain. He promised a letter in 48 hours. They'd built the fence in 8. That night, I cut her padlock, ran the heifers back through, and told myself I was just reclaiming what was mine. Next morning, the gate was welded shut, the steel bead still warm, and fresh signs tied to the fence. No trespassing, Barrett property. She'd used my name, facing her side, so I looked like the paranoid rancher building a prison yard. If I wasn't furious, I'd have admired the strategy. Then the article started. Property clash between rancher and HOA. The local paper wrote, quotes from Monica about an uncooperative neighbor refusing basic boundary clarification. They buried my actual job, the fact I'm the county surveyor, in paragraph 7, like a conflict of interest instead of proof. I knew exactly where the line was. Comment sections lit up. HOA residents calling me a bully, talking about backwards ranchers who should make way for progress. Progress. That's what we call theft now. I hired Aaron McCall, small, town attorney with big city teeth, working out of a converted bungalow that smelled like burnt coffee and old law books. This is blatant, she said, thumbing through photos and plats. But proving it? That's going to take time and money. They'll stall, bury you in motions, wait for you to run out of cash. How much? I asked. 8 to 12 months. 25 to 30 grand if they fight hard. I had 11,000 in savings, 80,000 $1,000 in medical debt from my late wife Claire's cancer, and a ranch that still needed feed, fuel, and fences. While I was doing that math, Monica hit the gas. Ethics complaint to county HR. Accused me of abusing my office to benefit my private ranching interests. That was a lie. I'd recused myself from my own survey, had my deputy sign off. Didn't matter. The accusation became public record overnight. Judge Ellison called me in, looking like a man who wanted to be anywhere else. I don't believe you did anything wrong, he said. But this looks bad. Maybe consider a leave of absence while it's investigated. Translation, you're on your own, and you're bad for my re-election. Her lawyers, Whitmore and Dales, a glossy Dallas firm, filed a counter-suit, alleged my survey was negligent, my cattle a private nuisance, demanded $125,000 for emotional harm, and lost property value. Emotional harm from cows mooing at sunrise. Every one of their filings cost me money to answer. Every week that passed, my bank account bled a little more. Then it stopped being just my problem. Kelly found it first, buried in HOA filings and tax records. Monica didn't just own the big corner house in Pine Ridge. Through an LLC called Halcyon Property Group, she owned 10 more. 3 of them were homes the HOA had foreclosed on after a special assessment for drainage repairs, $4,800 per home, that mysteriously passed with a fraction of the votes state law required. Young couple with a baby, retired vet named Tom Grady, single mom, all pushed into foreclosure when they couldn't pay an assessment that was never properly approved. The HOA auctioned the homes off. Halcyon, Monica's shell company, was the only bidder each time. She flipped those houses for full price within months, pocketing over $300,000. My fence line suddenly looked like the edge of something much uglier. And then came the twist that tied the whole scam together. The independent surveyor who'd conveniently drawn my land onto her plat, Northline Geo Services, owned by Evan Ross, her second ex-husband. The company had dissolved 4 months earlier. Number disconnected. No forwarding address. Kelly dug a little deeper and found an old record from 16 years back. Monica Hale had worked in the Redwood County Surveyor's office for 6 months, just long enough to learn the system. This wasn't a messy misunderstanding. This was a playbook. Once I understood this wasn't just my 43 feet, but an entire neighborhood being used as a piggy bank, something in me shifted. It stopped being about my pride and started being about people who didn't know the game they'd been dragged into. We went bigger. Aaron called Dana Whitaker in the state attorney general's Consumer Protection Division, sent everything. Fake survey markers set in concrete buckets, foreclosure timelines, shell company transfers, HOA minutes, bank records. Dana didn't sound surprised. She sounded tired in the way people do when they've seen this movie too many times. This is organized fraud, she said. If the evidence holds, we're not talking civil court anymore. We're talking felonies. Meanwhile, my daughter Rachel, an environmental attorney in Denver who'd been telling me to sell the ranch and buy a condo, flew home, saw the fence, saw the stress on my face, and changed sides in an instant. We camped at the kitchen table under a mountain of documents, her highlighters bleeding neon across HOA bylaws and plat approvals. She found 9 deviations from the original development plan, 3 of them serious environmental violations. Drainage pipes pointed too close to the creek, a pool shoved into a wetland buffer, a sign built in county right-of-way. I called Elliott Park, the state environmental compliance officer, owed me a favor from a mistake I'd caught years earlier. He came out with a tape and a clipboard, measured every violation, wrote them all up. 30 days to fix them or the fine started at $25,000 a day. He CC'd the EPA for good measure. Now homeowners' anger had somewhere new to go, straight at their own board. But the moment that really cracked Monica's armor came at a packed emergency HOA meeting in the Pine Ridge clubhouse, fluorescent lights buzzing, tension in the air thick enough to chew. I sat in the back with Aaron, technically just an observer. Tom Grady stood near the middle, back straight, wearing the same beat-up ball cap he'd worn the day he'd lost his house. Monica, in designer athleisure and a tight smile, asked the homeowners to approve $50,000 in emergency legal funds and a bylaw change that would make recalling board members almost impossible. Before we vote, Tom said, voice steady but shaking at the edges, I want to know where the last assessment went. It's being reconstructed after a records incident, Monica said. We had a water leak in the office. We're in a drought, a woman in the fourth row said. What leak? The room stirred. That's when I stood up. Heart pounding, palms sweaty, but voice coming out calm. My name is Logan Barrett, I said, and I have your financials. I told them about Halcyon Property Group, about the $127,000 in consulting fees paid to a company Monica controlled, about the $345,000 collected for drainage, the $89,000 actually spent, the rest drained away into accounts we'd already flagged for the state. Papers moved hand to hand through the crowd, rustling like dry leaves before a storm. You foreclosed on me over that assessment, Tom said, eyes never leaving her. Are you saying it was illegal? State law requires 2/3 of homeowners to approve any assessment over $2,500, Rachel said from the aisle, holding up the statute. You got 19 votes out of 72. That's not an assessment. That's a stick-up. The room erupted. Questions, shouts, anger that had been simmering for months finally boiling over. Right then, Erin walked down the aisle with a manila envelope. Ms. Monica Hale, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. On behalf of the state of Texas, you are hereby notified of an active criminal investigation into embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy relating to Pine Ridge Estates HOA and Halcyon Property Group. You could have heard a pin drop. A woman near the front stood, voice shaking. I move to remove Monica Hale as president and board member effective immediately. 5 people shouted, second. It wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, and it definitely wasn't the way Monica thought this meeting would go. But when the hands went up, almost everyone in the room, she was done. The board secretary, trembling but brave, read the tally out loud. Motion carried. By the time the state charges came 2 weeks later, embezzlement, fraud, forgery, the whole alphabet soup, she'd already lost the only thing that had ever really given her power. A room full of people who thought she was protecting them. The fence came down in a single day. Same crew, same posts, just in reverse, pulling steel out of concrete, while my heifers watched from the shade of the pecan trees that had been hers for exactly 6 miserable weeks. The new HOA board apologized, paid damages, signed a clean boundary agreement that matched the original plat I'd approved. Tom got his house back, walked up his old front steps, raised the flag on his porch, and put his arm around his granddaughter while she cried into his shirt. The state board cleared my license. Judge Ellison stood up at a commission meeting and said the words, "I'm sorry," into a microphone, which I'm pretty sure physically hurt him, and announced new audit procedures for every future development in Redwood County. I set up the Henry Barrett Stewardship Scholarship with the extra settlement money, small but real, 1 student a year going into surveying, AG, or environmental science. The first recipient? Tom's granddaughter, planning to become a civil engineer. Life settled. Grass grew over the scars where the fence posts had been. Rachel started visiting more. Lynn Carter, the local reporter who'd gone from writing neutral headlines to digging like a real investigator, came by for follow-up interviews and stayed for brisket and late-night coffee more than once. For the first time since Claire died, the house didn't feel quite so hollow. And me? I still get calls like, Logan, councilman wants to build a pool house halfway into the setback, says zoning doesn't really apply to him. I still pour coffee, pull out a fresh stack of plats, and say, sure, send it over. Because land doesn't lie. People do. Land just waits for the truth to catch up. So here's what I keep turning over in my mind, and I'm throwing it to you. When someone uses HOA power and legal loopholes to quietly steal homes and land, and the only way to stop them is to weaponize that same system, dig through records, trigger investigations, ruin their reputation, send them to court. What do we call that? Is it revenge dressed up as justice? Or is it the only honest way to fight back in a world where the rules have already been twisted? If you were in my boots, family land on the line, neighbors losing their homes, an HOA president treating people as pieces on her profit board, how far would you go to push back? And at what point would you say, this is enough?